issues with recording. Hi, Katrina.
Oh, hello. Hi.
So today it's all about understanding IRD and tax. I still can't hear anyone, but that's okay. If you've got any questions or anything, put them down in that chat box and then I can actually answer them for you. So we are accountable. So we are, this is me and Natalie, my right hand. We do financial accounting, bookkeeping and business development. And one of our specialties is we work with companies in financial difficulty and we actually help turn them around and clean them up. My background is, I used to work at Inland Revenue as a debt collector and prosecuting companies for non-payment of PAYE, so everyone's friend. And then I jumped ship and actually started working as a company liquidator. So now I use all of my knowledge to actually help small business owners do well in their business. So today you've got, there's a little chat thing down the bottom. And if you've got a question, feel free to actually jump in there and let me know if you've got anything. At the moment, I can see you're all muted, so sing out if you've got something that you want to say. I'm not quite sure why I'm not hearing you right now. So rules of the game, 100% participation. It's essential that you ask the questions that you need to know. There is no dumb question, and I guarantee that if you're thinking it, others will be thinking it too. So make sure if I don't explain something very well, make sure you do actually send me a message so that we can actually cover it off. My whole philosophy in business and what I like to do with all my clients is dream big. Learn information today that you'll be able to use in the future. So some of this may not be relevant to you now, but in the future it may be. And have fun. Life is too short. Let's try to enjoy this process. It's not about, we're not prim and proper. We're actually very go with the flow type accountants. So we believe that if you're having fun, you're going to learn more and you'll retain the information better. This is one of the things that I say to all of my clients, and so far I haven't come across someone that can say they have all three things. So a truly successful business should provide the income to support the lifestyle you want and the discretionary time to enjoy it.
Nice dogs.
Some people have the income and then they have the lifestyle, but then they don't have the time because they're working 70 hours a week to get the money to be able to do what they want to do. So what we aim to have is a business that can actually provide you the income so that you've got the lifestyle and you've also got the time to enjoy the lifestyle. And if we look at our current situation we're in now, you've all got plenty of time because none of us can work, but then we actually don't probably have the income right now. So ideally we're aiming for all three. Now, I know you've probably all got an IRD log-on and you work through My IR. My IR is really, really cool. So if you haven't actually already got your My IR log-on, up the top, you've got your register button when you go to the IRD webpage, so ird.gov.nz. Just register. And eventually it brings you to this page here where you can actually create your own log-on, whether it's for your business or for yourself individually. This means with this access, you don't actually need to ring them anymore. You can actually just send them a message. You can send them attachments now. So you can do whatever you need to do, and it creates a record to actually say that you have actually provided the information to them. Back in the day when I worked at IRD, people would say, but I sent you this information and we never got it. It got lost in the mail, it went somewhere, and so the client was always penalised because we didn't have what they'd sent us. by using my IR and actually sending through those messages to us, you actually have a written record to say, I sent this to you then, and you've got a little bit more protection. So we're going to talk about not all tax types today. Tax is incredibly boring, but inland revenue, this is how they function, is on tax types. So today we're going to focus on the PAYE KiwiSaver, so all of those employee ones. This one is critical, and a lot of people don't know that if you do not pay PAYE, that can be punishable with a $50,000 fine or a 5-year prison sentence. So in my time at Inland Revenue, it was me that was selecting the companies to decide who we were going to prosecute and who we weren't. We would then sit down and do evidential interviews, which formed part of our case in court. So obviously here I'm talking about, you haven't paid PAYE for 12 months, 1 month, we're not going to put you in prison for 5 years, but PAYE is the one tax type that we've always got to pay, because the penalties, and we'll go into that a bit further on, are actually really quite harsh. GST and income tax. So I know tax is boring, but we'll try and make it as fun as we possibly can. So everyone knows this is where your tax money is spent. It is education, it's our roading, it's all those benefits, it's laws, it's the courthouses, it's our health system. So I have benefited a lot from the health system, and my children are educated, so I feel that even the amount of tax that I do pay, I actually do get value. I also get to drive on a nice road instead of Fiji where it's potholes and stuff. So no one likes paying tax, but there is a reason why we do it. And income tax rates, once you're at 70,000, you're going to be paying 30% on your income. Company tax rate is 28. So just sometimes your accountant will actually give you so much money and leave the rest of the money in the company. That's because we get cheaper tax rates by leaving it in the company. I'm sure you pretty much know a lot of this stuff already. GST is monthly, 2 monthly, 6 monthly. You do not need to register for it unless you are turning over 60k or looking like you're going to turn over 60k in a year. GST is not your money, and it is collected on behalf of the government. I have in the past worked with clients who went, oh, I'm going to get to 60k, I'm going to reduce my pricing, I'm not going to collect money for the government. That thought pattern is very short-sighted, but there are people that do think that. When you actually do, what I recommend to clients is that we set up a different bank account number for the GST, and when the money comes in, you shift that across then and there so that you don't actually have that issue. In Xero, and I saw, thank you very much for answering all of those questions. The majority of you are working with Xero, and you can actually look at any point in time of the period and see what your GST return is. So I sort of recommend to clients, jump in every Friday or whatever, choose a day, jump in, have a look to see what your GST liability is at that time, and then just transfer that amount into a different bank account. And so you've always got that money ready to go. Common mistakes: registering for GST before you need to. Make sure you weigh up the pros and cons for registering early. Choosing the wrong accounting basis. Often I see lots of small business owners using the invoice basis. Invoice basis is generally really good for those bigger businesses because you have to pay the GST before you've got the GST. On a payments basis, when you've spent the money and when you've received the money, that's when the GST is worked out. So generally it means that the money's in your bank account before you have to pay it to IRD. Keep accurate records. And a lot of people actually forget to claim costs. So what I see is that people will go down the shop and buy coffee and milk for the business, but they'll use their personal EFTPOS card and they won't actually transfer that into the business. So it's really about making sure you've actually got the transactions in the right places. And the other thing is charging GST before you've registered. You cannot charge GST if you are not GST registered. I've also seen people where they have registered for GST, but their intention was to only to register for one income stream of their business. So they never actually claimed the GST or paid the GST on the other income stream of their business. But when you've registered for GST, it's everything. You can't pick and choose what income and what expenses you actually would like to include in that GST. It is everything is GST. And if you want to deregister for GST, then you've actually got to pay back all the assets, all the GST that remains on your assets in that last return. So registering for GST, there is a lot of pros and cons, so make sure that you do actually have a chat to someone first before you go down that road. Late payment penalties. I feel like I'm rushing, but a lot of this is probably information you guys already know, and I'm picking, there'll be a lot of questions around the COVID stuff, so we'll just go through this. Late payment penalties start the day after the payment is due. So if it was due on the 20th, your late payment penalties start on the 21st. 1% penalty the day after the payment is due, 4% is after 7 days, and then 1% penalty every month after that. So this is goes on top of each other all the time. So once we've got that 4% hit, you're then going to be paying another 1% on top of your 4%. So it just keeps on going. If it's your first late payment in a 2-year period, you will probably get a grace period before they charge the penalties. But if there is a history, you will be charged them all the time. So child support is completely utterly different, and we're not going to go into child support because that's way, way different. Late payment penalties are not charged for debts under $100. So does that all make sense? Is there any questions there? Cool. Income tax. Generally, if you're with an accountant, they're going to manage this all for you. But if you're not with an accountant, your income tax return is due the 7th of July. And if you don't actually do it, then it's a $50 fine if your tax is less than 100K. It is unlikely that, I mean, it'd be great if any of you were actually going to be charged a $500 penalty, but I think we sort of focus on small business here. PAYE penalties. So earlier I said PAYE is horrible. You have to pay PAYE. That is the one thing that IRD is going to make your life difficult on. So the penalty for late filing of employment information is $250. So what I see a lot of is people will process payroll, but they won't finalise payroll. So say if you're using Xero Payroll or Crystal Payroll or any one of those, you've actually got to finalise payroll and shut it down. If you don't do that, then the return is not sent through to Inland Revenue, and then you get stung $250. And what I saw the other day, they had no idea that this is what they had to do. And they had been charged $250 for the last couple of months. And it was because he was leaving it open, and then the next week he would actually go in and shut that one down and open up his next pay run. by that stage, you only have 2 days to actually file that return. So he was getting $250 added on, and then, you know, late payment penalties on top of that penalty. So it was actually skyrocketing quite fast.
Mm-hmm.
Late payment penalties apply if the PAYE is not paid by the due date. So where we talked before about payment penalties for income tax and GST, they still apply for PAYE penalties. However, we've also got an extra 10% charged monthly for all payments not paid. So when you can think about this is the amount of money that you're paying your staff, to chuck on another 10% every single month, add to that the extra 4% and extra 1%, it actually starts rolling really, really fast, and you end up with a huge debt. PAYE is considered theft if you don't actually pay the money, because this is not your money. This is money that your employees have earned. So this is why these penalties are so high. If you need to and you're not able to pay it, the best thing to do is to enter into an instalment arrangement to make these payments, and that way the penalty is reduced down to 5% monthly instead of 10%. So quite a huge saving, and it's about having those conversations early rather than later. One of the big things I see, instalment arrangements. So people enter into an instalment arrangement with Inland Revenue. So, hey, I've just got a dip in my cash flow. Can't pay my GST this month, but I will in say 8 weeks' time. And so what they do is they focus on paying off that instalment arrangement. All the money goes to clearing the debt with IRD, and it leaves them hamstrung to actually pay the current stuff coming through. So they start getting into this whole robbing Peter to pay Paul situation. We focus on the old debt, and what we're doing is we're paying old stuff, and then the new stuff becomes old stuff, and it just rolls. The moment we end up not paying current obligations, so if we have a debt of GST and then we're focusing on paying the old one and we don't pay this new one, our arrangement falls over. So what you're doing then is you're funneling all your money into your old debt. You're back up to paying premium penalties because the arrangement has fallen over, you haven't kept current. So you're better off to have an instalment arrangement with a lower repayment rate, making sure that you can actually pay your current obligations, and then you'll be able to keep it all working well. Generally, an instalment arrangement needs to be dealt with within 2 to 3 years. So, you know, there are companies out there that do actually need to take the 3 years. But once again, you're better off to go with a lower monthly rate, stay current, less stress by doing that, and doing it over a longer period of time. If you know you can't pay, organise it early. So we sort of, this is one of our specialties, is working with Inland Revenue, helping companies that have ended up in trouble. And we're quite realistic that we're going to be doing quite a bit of work over this COVID situation, because people just aren't going to be able to stay on top of things with no income coming in for 4, 6, 8 weeks, depending on how long lockdown lasts for. So if you're not sure and you don't feel that IRD you can actually deal with them, or they're confusing, by all means keep in touch with us, because we can actually help you. And keep the repayments affordable. So often I see people doing negotiations with Inland Revenue where they just want to give them everything because they feel so bad. And when I worked at Inland Revenue, we were trained to actually, you know, someone would ring up and say, look, I don't have the money for GST. And we were trained to go, what? You don't have it? And make them feel like they're the most horrible person because everyone else can pay their GST, and why can't you? So I do understand now that Inland Revenue is trying to change that model, but it's still a really horrible situation to be in when you are struggling financially and Inland Revenue wants money from you and they're the big scary beast. So just remember that you can only do what you can do. One of the key things that I like to do with all of my clients, and I don't know if any of you are aware about Tax Management New Zealand or Tax Traders. So because, you know, end of year rolls around and suddenly you've got a $10,000 tax bill, it can be quite overwhelming and it hurts cash flow. So what I do with my smaller clients is we actually work with Tax Management and Tax Traders. We can look at their tax bill and actually go, okay, so we estimate your tax bill is going to be $10,000. What we can then do is enter into an arrangement with Tax Management, which is sort of like HPing your tax, hire purchasing your tax, and you just make regular weekly or monthly payments. There will be times where you don't have the money, so like your provisional tax dates roll round and everyone's scrambling to find the $5,000 or $3,000 to go towards tax pooling, towards provisional tax. By going down the road of Tax Traders or Tax Management, we can actually just make regular payments with no stress, no hassle on cash flow. And all the payments are actually paid back to Inland Revenue as at due date. So there's no penalties or interest applied by Inland Revenue. You don't have Inland Revenue chasing you to actually give you the money because you may be a day late or anything. There's no 4% penalty, no 1% penalty. And it is just easy for you. Like some of my clients, we just have $100 a week ticking over and it goes through to tax planning. What this actually means is that if a payment is due the 7th of May and we haven't paid the full amount by the 7th of May, then Tax Management or Tax Traders will start charging a tiny amount of interest just for that period, just for that amount that you haven't paid by the due date. It is far smaller than what Inland Revenue is going to charge you, but once you've actually paid it, the interest stops. And so you just carry on making your regular payments and it's very nice. Where you've actually got to make your payments, say on the 7th of April for your terminal tax, by going down the road of Tax Traders and Tax Management, we actually get an extra 75 days to pay this terminal tax. So for those that have just got their financial accounts done in the last 3 months and now they've got $5,000 that they need to pay by the 7th of April, you can now pay that through these guys in May, June. So the end of June type thing, early July, without any penalties or interest. So it's a really great way for actually managing your cash flow, taking the pressure off, and there's no fee. So it's actually really quite simple to actually do that. So there's no administration fee or anything like that. It is just if there is an amount not paid by the due date, you pay a very small amount of interest, and it will be a lot less than what IRD are going to charge you. Does anyone actually use that now? Just in the chat box, just put in there that you are using that, or does that sound like something you would be interested in investigating? Most accountants are actually doing this sort of stuff for you. You just sort of need to ask if that is something that you would be interested in. So payment dates, GST is the 28th of the month, except January and April, except the December and April one. So they're due 15th of January and the 7th of May. Income tax is due the 7th of July. Sorry, the return is due the 7th of July or the 31st of March if you've got an accountant. So if you're filing it on your own, it's got to be done by the 7th of July. PAYE means payday filing means that you've got to file it within 2 days after payroll has closed. So once you've actually confirmed payroll, most payroll packages will connect up with Inland Revenue and file it. But if you don't finalise payroll, it's not going to go through. Payments dues, PAYE payments are due to be paid on the 20th of every month. Terminal tax is due the 7th of April, and provisional tax is due the 7th of May, the 28th of August, and the 15th of January. So what I sort of say to clients, your cash flow is going to take a hammering those first 5 months of the year, because in January you've got your GST from December, you've got your GST due in February, you've then actually got terminal tax due in April, and then you've got GST and Prov tax again in May. So those first 5 months of the year, you're going to be hemorrhaging cash. So make sure that you've got that separate bank account set up, or if you have set up tax pooling, then that's just going to take some pressure off. But the first 5 months of the year are always going to be difficult, unless you're rolling in money. No issues then. So, is there any questions on any of that? Does that make sense? Very, very rushed, because I know you probably know most of it anyway. The COVID-19 stuff. So IRD at the moment, and I had someone say to me the other day, IRD are all hugs and kisses at the moment. So they're being really nice. What they have offered to do is, if you're in a position where you don't have the GST or the PAYE to pay, like none of us know how long we're going to be in this situation for. You know, at the moment it's definitely 4 weeks. It could actually extend out to 6 weeks and maybe even 8 weeks. So we do now need to be conserving cash as much as we can. And if that means that we don't pay PAYE and we don't pay GST, because, you know, we've got to actually put food on the table and survive this, then that's okay. We can actually do that. What IRD have said is that any taxes that are due for payment after the 14th of Feb, we can actually apply and have penalties and interest written off. So that's, and they're pretty much guaranteed that one as well, which is really nice. This is for a short period of time. I would not recommend you take your GST and your PAYE and invest it into a term deposit for 6 months and then make some money on it and then actually go and pay your tax. Can't guarantee they're still going to be all hugs and kisses in 6 months' time. And your terminal tax is still actually due in April, in 6 days' time actually. What the reason for that is that that tax has actually been incurred from a previous financial period. So it's really important that that is still actually paid. If you've got problems with cash flow, we can actually put it through tax management or tax traders and then get another 75 days to actually pay that off. So that we can buy some time by going down that road. The one thing IRD has asked is that even if you can't pay, they still want you to file all your returns by the due date. So the GST's got to be in, the PAYE's got to be in, all of that sort of stuff. We still have to file so that they can actually work out what's happening and they can manage their whole, because I'm sure you can appreciate the government's hemorrhaging cash at the moment. They need to have these returns to be able to model what's going to happen with cash flow for them as well. So must file all returns by the due date, but for a short period of time, we can actually apply to get penalties and interest written off. And if that's something you want to do, then, and you've got a My IR account, you can actually just send them a message and say, hey, look, I've now paid the debt that I was meant to pay. So my GST was $5,500. I've now paid the $5,500. My business was affected because I had to shut down for 4 weeks. I had no income coming in. Can you please write off the penalties and interest? And then they will actually go ahead and do that for you. Have a chat to your accountant and actually see whether it is the right thing to do is to estimate your provisional tax again. So if you've had a boomer 2020 year, you're going to have a lot of tax to pay in 2021, and that's going to affect your provisional tax. If, however, we're now estimating that the next 4 months of the 2021 year are going to be incredibly light, you may actually want to consider going to your accountant and saying, let's re-estimate it and reduce those provisional taxes due. Like, there's no point in paying heaps of provisional tax if we know we're not going to make the profit. So have that discussion with them. One thing Inland Revenue has done this year, and it is to help you with your cash flow, is in the past, if you went and bought a fancy office chair for $600, that had to go onto your balance sheet, and we depreciated that every year. So you got a small tax break every year while we depreciated that asset. Now what they've said is for the up until the 16th of March, so you've got between now and the 16th of March 2021 to go and buy all your assets as you like, as long as you can pay for them, and we can actually claim up to $5,000. So anything that you buy less than $5,000 will just go straight through and depreciate your tax. So you're not going to have the tax to pay next year if you've gone and bought assets. After the 16th of March 2021, that amount will reduce down to $1,000. So they've actually given us a permanent increase of $500, which is really quite nice. But if there is things that you want to buy, then in this next financial year, if you can afford to, then it's well worth doing. And the other thing that they've decided to bring back is depreciation on commercial buildings. So this is not if you are a landlord and you've got 3 residential houses that you rent out. That is not what they're meaning here. They're meaning commercial buildings. If you own a hotel, you can now start depreciating that building. So it's all about trying to get people to invest in small business and keep the economy growing, which is why they've made this decision. Any questions on that one? Nope.
No.
So the leave subsidy, and I'm picking, most of you would have actually applied for the leave subsidy by now. So the wage subsidy. The leave subsidy has now been removed, and the only thing that we've got available now is the wage subsidy. So the leave subsidy was for those that were self-isolating. It was for a 2-week period because you couldn't go anywhere for 14 days. That has now been removed as of last Friday, I think it is. And now they've given us the wage subsidy. So depending on when you applied, we've got 2 different rules. Prior to last Friday, you had to make your best efforts to pay 80% to your staff. Now you're expected to pay 80% to your staff. The wage subsidy is for those that have been impacted by 30% in a 4-week period. So if the fact that most of you are actually all shut down and are unable to do anything for the next 4 weeks probably means that you're going to be impacted by 30%. So you'll qualify for this. If you've got any questions or anything like that, make sure you talk to your accountant or bookkeeper, or if you just want to flick me an email, I'm more than happy to give you an indication of whether or not you qualify. The wage subsidy is for 12 weeks. So what we need to do is you apply, it comes into your business bank account, and then we create a liability account, and then the money actually goes into that. And every week, if you're a sole trader or anything like that, we just need to show that there is payment of $585.80 coming out and going to you personally. What they have now said, and it probably isn't a shock to any of you, but there's been a heap of fraud around this because the government did just open it up and said, here guys, have as much money as you possibly want. There has been a lot of fraud, and so they're now tightening it up, and what they are now saying is that people will be audited to actually show that you were able to receive this money. What that means is we just need to have a paper trail to show. So when they do come knocking, if you're one of the lucky candidates, is that you've got all the paper there. So what we need to see is, and with Xero it's really easy, and I'll show you on the next slide how to do it. Paper trail to say, here's the money disappearing over the 12-week period. You need, if you have employees, you need to have written to them or gone to them and actually said, can I have your approval to supply your personal details to MSD? So if you don't have it in writing, and that can just be, yeah, Bob, go for it. Here's an email to say, yes, happy for you to share my personal details. If you have not got that in writing, you probably won't pass the audit. Therefore, you're not able to receive that funding on behalf of your employees, and you may actually have to pay that amount back. So send out an email to all of your staff going, hey guys, I'm applying for the wage subsidy. Are you okay if I provide your personal details, which is IRD number and date of birth, to MSD? I have not had an employee say no so far. So, but it's just a document thing, paper thing that we've got to have. One of the big questions, and when you actually applied for the wage subsidy, you would have ticked a little box, and one of the conditions was that you've considered and you've taken action to mitigate being impacted by COVID-19. That is not going to be possible for everyone, but what I've sort of suggested to people is actually just sit down, have a Word document in front. You know, my business, I can't take it online. I manufacture chairs. I can't manufacture chairs in an online environment. I couldn't actually get my staff to work. They work actually at home. So just to document what you've actually done to actually be to be impacted, and things that you could have done differently, which 9 times out of 10 at this point in time, there's not much you can actually do. And create a paper trail. So that's pretty much the most important thing, is it's actually having that paper trail, and just store that somewhere in a folder, because when this is all over and we're actually back to work and we're trying to actually put money back in the bank account, the last thing you're going to want is to get an email saying, congratulations, you're now being audited, and rushing into a panic, because no one actually needs that. Do it all now, have it sitting in a folder on your computer. When you get the magic letter, you can just go, sweet, here's all my documents, and you carry on. So this is more about actually just putting yourself into a really good position. So I think the bulk of you are all Xero, and this is a lovely little journal. So what we've actually done is we have created a code in Xero, so called the COVID-19 Wage Subsidy. So that actually sits on our balance sheet to show that we've actually got money from the government that we haven't spent yet. Wages are to be paid as per normal. So the wage subsidy is actually to subsidise the business owner to reduce the cost of wages. The wage subsidy has got nothing to do with the wages being paid itself. So you just keep continuing to pay your staff the same way that you always would have. The subsidy is to be coded as a liability, and then each week, when you've paid your wages and you're using Xero Payroll or Crystal Payroll, and it fires through the lovely invoice and it goes to wages or salaries on your profit and loss, we then just go and take out. So I've paid 4 employees and they've each received $585.80. So then the amount that comes out of wages is $2,343, because that was what the government funded me. So I can't claim a taxable expense in my profit and loss because the government has paid that, I haven't. So we take that out of wages and we apply it to our COVID-19 wage subsidy, which then effectively reduces that liability because we've actually spent it. So wages are paid as per normal. You carry on operating as per normal. The only difference is at the end of every pay run, you would just do this quick journal just to take the money out of wages and actually apply it to that liability, which in 12 weeks' time, theoretically, that liability should be should be gone, actually, because you would have actually spent it all. There is still discussion, and at the moment, what they've said is, yes, if you've got Joe Bloggs and you've got your 585.80 come in, and Joe Bloggs actually only earns $450, do I actually have to pay back the remainder? The decision at this stage is that no, you can actually use Joe Bloggs' extra subsidy money to actually pay Sarah Bloggs. So you can take all the money and actually pay it to other staff. They are not going to be requesting that, and we're back out of lockdown in 8 weeks' time, so everyone's all back to normal and everything's honky-dory. They're not going to come to you and say, can I have 4 weeks back, please? This money is to help you come through COVID-19. So this is about giving you a helping hand and continue on, because everyone is quite realistic that this is going to be a challenge and people are going to be affected for a lot longer than 4 weeks. So that money is there for you to spend. The only thing is you've got to have that paper trail. There is bound to be a question on that. Someone give me a question.
I have. Where am I? Go chat.
No?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Do you want to check it in the chat box? I can't hear you for some reason.
Oh, you can't hear me? Oh, okay. Okay, my hubby is working, but the recruitment company applied, asked if they could get.
Okay. Katrina's furiously typing something.
Yeah, they could get a subsidy, and he said, do they keep the money? Do they keep the money?
So do many of you actually have employees? Are you going to be doing wages or not really?
They keep the money because he is back at work. Right. Can we ask because he's back at work? Make sense? Right.
Okay. Does it come? Have you sent it, Katrina?
Yeah, I have.
Oh.
Yeah.
I love technology. Technology is amazing. Okay, let me just jump out of there for a bit. Oh, look. Wow, look at all of your messages. I am so bad.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. So, Daniel, I can actually look into that tax traders for you, and I'll flick you an email because they're all very different, but I know it is much, much smaller than what it is at IRD. Can you touch on the liability account where we pay ourselves? So it's entirely up to you, and do you recommend opening a new bank account for this? This is entirely up to you. So if you know that you can have $10,000 sitting in the bank and you're not going to go and spend it, then it's fine sitting in your bank account. If you know that you're going to get $10,000, and so then you're going to look at it every day and go, well, I can go shopping. Not that you can because the shops aren't open. then you may actually want to have that separate bank account. The one thing I would say is, that right now it's important that if you do set up a separate bank account, then you actually have to set that up in Xero as well. So for us to be able to create that paper trail, we need to see, here is your $10,000 and here's the 585 disappearing. And for us to do that, if the money is sitting in a separate bank account, we've actually got to have that in Xero as well. So that's one thing I would consider. When you set up your liability account in Xero, so make sure that when you set it up, there is no GST. And I can actually demonstrate how to set that up if that is something you would like to see. And all we actually need to see is, here is the amount of money that MSD have given you, and here are the payments disappearing and where they've actually gone to. So it went to wages for the period 6th of April, or it's gone to Joe Bloggs, he's the company shareholder, and it's gone into his personal bank account. That is all we need to see. So we just need to make sure that you haven't taken the money and gone and bought a new car with it or something like that. This is meant to be to help you to pay your normal everyday living costs. And the wage subsidy is there to actually keep employees connected to you. So if you do get the wage subsidy and you've claimed it for 12 weeks, you can't pay them for 2 weeks and then go, oh, now we're going to make you redundant and we're going to end your job, because then you no longer are entitled to the following 10 weeks and that will need to be paid back. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I can now see the chat. I couldn't see it before. My hubby is working, but the recruitment company asked if they could get a subsidy and he said yes. Do they keep the money because he is back at work? No, so they use the money to pay his wages. So this money, so he will keep working as per normal. They would have had a reduction of 30% in their income over a 4-week period, because a lot of places that recruitment company would be working for are not operating at the moment. So they would have been impacted by 30%. The money goes into their bank account and then they use that to subsidise his wages. So he still gets paid as per normal. If I am the only person working in the business, does 80% of the wage subsidy go to me each week and the other 20% into the business? No. So the wage subsidy 100% goes to you. I've just put the wage subsidy money into my business savings and I've set up a weekly payment of $585.80. Perfect. That's exactly what you're meant to do, Tess. And that's going to give us that paper trail, but be aware that when your accountant goes and files your end of year tax, you will pay tax on that $7,000. So the money coming in from MSD is not taxable for the business. It is taxable to the end user. So that is your employees and that is you personally. So out of that $7,000, I think it's about $1,100 you're going to pay in tax. So just be aware that that is going to boost your taxes for next year because you've actually got this money. So put, say, $1,100, $1,200 aside, and that's going to help with your tax bill at the end of next year. Bearing in mind that everyone has actually got this money now, it is not going to impact your 2020 financial year. It is only going to affect your 2021 year because it's for the next 12 weeks and the 2020 year finished yesterday. So this tax liability that we've just talked about you creating by getting the wage subsidy money is not going to be payable until 2022. So we're 2 years out, really. That sounds really weird, doesn't it? I usually only take drawings from my business at very random times. Should I start transferring the 58580 weekly? Yes. So that's essentially it. I agree, Tess, everything is weird at the moment. So it is about creating that paper trail. You probably don't need to actually spend the 585. Just take it out of the business, put it into your personal. You can actually store it sitting there. It can sit on your mortgage account. We've just got to see it coming out of the business and creating that paper trail. What you do with it at the end is up to you. We just need to have that paper trail. Does that answer that?
Yep, cool.
Brilliant. Okay. What I'm going to do, so we'll just go through the last few slides here, and then I'll come back to the chat box. So you've got your next steps, really, and I keep saying this to clients, and it's right now, you guys are in a perfect position. Oh, look at that, the chat box is now working. When completed the form, I mixed me and my employee up in terms of hours. She's full-time and me part-time. No, because at the end of the day, it's the same amount of money. So I wouldn't panic too much about that one. It's the same amount of money. And MSD have had 370,000 claims in the last 2 weeks. So you can imagine they really don't care whether you've put in the wrong details right now, because it's the same amount of money. Your next steps. Doing nothing is not an option. We are all in this together. We are all in this really weird space right now. None of us know what this looks like, and if you'd actually said to me at Christmas time that the entire world was going to shut down, I wouldn't have believed you, but yet here we are, the entire world is pretty much shut down. Now is the time for you guys to actually focus on your business, actually understand your business. What do you do well? What do you not do well? What are the things that you actually love about your business? This is all about you guys. So actually put the oxygen mask on yourself first. This is about creating a plan for you to actually succeed when we come out the other side. And a prime example is I was working with a client once. She had an extremely successful business. She was making lots and lots of money. It was actually, you know, the lifestyle was great. She could do what she wanted. She hated the work. And so what we actually did was we actually carved up the business. We threw a whole bunch of it out and we only kept the stuff she liked. And that sounds quite dramatic, but that's exactly what we did. She didn't have a reduction in income because she was now actually passionate about what she was doing. Her clients actually felt so much more connected to her because she was a lot more connected to her business. And she actually reduced the hours that she was working. So by actually only focusing on what you love doing, you actually make more money. And now is the time. You've got the headspace to actually have these thoughts. Unless, of course, you've got toddlers running around and then you're not going to have any headspace. But now is the time for you to plan. Now is the time for you guys to be putting your marketing plans together and actually coming up with the next 6 months. How am I going to do this? What am I going to do? Who's my target market? One of our clients is actually redeveloping their entire business over this next 4 weeks, because when we go out of this, he's going to be able to launch in a much different space. So this is about making sure that you've actually got the support you need, and the RBP network has got everything that they've put a lot of money into actually supporting you guys. So if you've got questions, then make sure you take the time and actually surround yourself with experts who can actually answer these questions for you and steer you in the right direction. Focus on what you can do. So I think that's the critical thing. You know, right now, we're all being told to stay home. No one likes being told what to do. It's like being back in mum's house. But focus on what you can do. And then from that is going to come a whole bunch more positive stuff. You're going to struggle developing this business and coming out the other side if you end up in a mindset which is very well as me. I hate the situation I'm currently in. So really, really think about what you can do. I think we've got another session that we're running on Friday, which is small group stuff. I will sort out my hearing by then. And that is very much a brainstorming question and answer, and actually really start working together to actually develop what opportunities you guys have got when we come out of this, because it's going to be strange, and it's going to be strange for a long period of time. So my chat group is now working. My hearing is not, but there's bound to be questions like, what is it that you guys are really struggling with? Is it, what do we say to inland revenue if we can't pay the bill? Is it, do my staff, do they get paid the full amount? Do they get paid 80%? Is there any questions at all on that front? Yes, I can. So let me just go to there.
Can I speak? No.
I'm just logging into Xero. It won't be long. Okay, so hopefully you're now all seeing the demo company. Brilliant. So when we go into here, we go accounting, chart of accounts. And what you'll need to do is look at your liabilities. So we go into here. And so here we've got our COVID-19 wage subsidy. So there's no GST on the money, and we're going to be making payments into this account. So COVID-19 wage subsidy, it's a current liability, meaning that it's actually going to be sorted in 12 weeks. So it's not going to be around forever. You may just want to flick an email through to your accountant and actually say, hey, look, this is how we're going to deal with it. And if they want you to do something else, then by all means, but this is how we're managing it from our end. And so that's it. You've got this nice little COVID-19 wage subsidy sitting down here. You would pay wages, and your wages will go through the payroll system, through the bank, and they'll just disappear. So if we can imagine this here is a wage payment, wouldn't that be nice? But that's our wage payment. And so you would just code that as per normal to say this is wages. So there's no changes there whatsoever. The last step now, just for the next 12 weeks, manual journal. And so you would create this manual journal, and it is, you put in your description, this is what I'm doing, the date, so that would be the date that you've actually made the payment, so that the payment leaving the bank account and the payment on the manual journal actually relate to each other. And then you would code it, you would debit the COVID journal, and you will be crediting the salaries or the wages or whatever your profit and loss account is. Does that make sense? And then that's all you've got to do. Daniel, oh, congratulations, you're still running. Luckily, we actually moved our business home last weekend. Just that was what our plan actually was. And so now we find ourselves in the situation with a full setup office. So I'm quite grateful. I have one staff member in quarantine. Can I claim for him? He has no holiday pay or sick leave. Yes, you can. So as long as, so this is all about making sure that he stays connected to you. That's what that leave payment was for, was about giving you money to pay his wages while he was in quarantine or self-isolation for 14 days. What actually happened was businesses would claim that 2 weeks and then they would go and claim the extra 12 weeks, and the government cottoned on to that. So they've wiped out the 2 weeks, but you can still claim for that the 12-week wage subsidy as long as he is still on payroll and you're still keeping him connected to you. Does that make sense? So even if, and I've got one at the moment, and they had signed an employment agreement beginning of March, and she actually starts work next week for this client, we're actually able to pay him as well. We're able to claim for that new person as well. She wasn't actually on payroll at the time, but she will be, and we had a commitment to actually pay that person before this happened. So what you pay him is entirely up to you. Normal wage, then wait for the subsidy. So you need to pay him, the rules are that you need to pay him at least 80% of his wage. If you do go and make any decisions like I'm not going to pay you 100%, you do actually need to get it in writing from them, and any changes that you make in that employment contract have to actually be done in writing with the employee's agreement. If you don't, if you just decide, I'm now only going to pay my employees 80%, then, and you don't actually talk to them about it or get their approval, then you're actually in breach of your employment contract and could be in a little bit of trouble. So make sure everything that you do, you have that conversation with your employees and actually work with them. So if you're going to do the normal wage, that COVID wage subsidy will come in. That is just going to subsidise it. So it doesn't matter whether you pay him normal wage now and normal wage when the subsidy comes in, or 80% now or 80% when the subsidy comes in, because the subsidy is for you to subsidise the wages that you're going to pay. It is not connected to the employee. So you do what you want to do, just make sure, protect yourself and make sure everything is in writing and you've had that discussion. Can you please specify exactly what we need to keep in regards to paper trail? So you've got the document that you're going to write up, which says, you know, I've thought about it. I can't move my business online. You know, for some of my clients, we have actually been able to take their business and put it online, which has now taken them from a little Hawke's Bay business to actually now being able to cater for the entire country. So, you know, on that front, that's quite exciting. I know of quite a few other businesses that are in that position where they've been able to change what they do and sort of modify things a little bit, which has now given them a lot more growth opportunities in future. But there are businesses like, you know, a dog walker cannot take their business online. So as long as you've actually got something documented to say, this is what we've tried to do to mitigate any loss. Oh, look at that test, didn't even know. Hello, maybe you could actually run entertaining sessions for dogs to watch online. There is, as long as you've got everything that you've actually thought about, and just because you're not walking physical dogs for the next 4 weeks, doesn't mean that you can't work on the business. So by focusing on your business plan, by actually looking at your marketing, you know, you can actually show someone if they did come audit you. So what did you do in the last 9 weeks? Because you didn't just have a holiday. No, so I've worked out, I've now got all my health and safety sorted. I've got my marketing schedule sorted for the next 6 months. I've done this, I've done that. I've now worked out what my client target market is. So there's all this sort of stuff that you can actually do. And as long as it's documented, it's actually going to help you if you do get audited. And the only other thing that we really need is obviously the paperwork if you've got employees, or and the paper trail to show you gave me $7,000, I spent $7,000 this week, this week, this week, this week, this week, and here's my 12 weeks worth of payments. And that's what you need to be able to get through audit if you're one of the lucky ones. I am expecting, because of the sort of things that have actually been happening, that a lot of people will be audited. So don't be like everyone else and think, oh, it's not going to happen to me. Just make sure that you've actually got everything, because it's high chance that they may actually try and audit everyone. It's a possibility. What happens with the wage subsidy if I am able to work and help essential services? So once again, the wage subsidy is there to help you get through the next 12 weeks. If you're able to work, wholly well done, you're amazing. That does not mean you're not entitled to the 12 weeks. The 12-week wage subsidy is based on the fact that you've taken a 30% hit. So if your business is down by 30%, then you're entitled to that 12 weeks, whether you're working full-time, part-time, 2 hours, it is yours because you've been hit by 30%. What happens to balance of money between end of lockdown and the 12 weeks? Nothing, it's yours. So what they've actually said is that here is 12 weeks. You know, I would love to say in 4 weeks' time we're going to be out of this and we can all go back to living the same way. The reality is that's not going to happen. There is talk about extending this out to 6 weeks and potentially even 8 weeks. So we are in this for the long haul. Make sure that you are actually prepared for the long haul. If we come out of this in 4 weeks, then isn't that great? You've done 4 weeks of planning and we can actually get back on the horse and actually start doing things. But the last thing I want is for people to go, it's 4 weeks, tomorrow is the deadline, 4 weeks, we're back to normal, because the chances are that's not going to happen. So all the talk in the background, just be prepared for it's going to be a lot longer than 4 weeks. So at the end of the day, we come out of this in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, the money is there to help you get through. You know, this is not going to be a magic thing that you're all out of lockdown and Air New Zealand's going to start travelling around the world again. The chances are that we're going to be heavily impacted for a substantial period of time. And I think it was even on the news the other day, God, look at me all doom and gloom, that they may not even open the borders to New Zealand for another year. So people won't be travelling. So we need to start thinking now, what can we do in our business to actually make this more viable? We all need to change, including the way that we operate. We all need to change what we do, because this world is going to look a lot differently. So take the time to actually start analysing, what are your opportunities? How can we do this? What does that look like? You know, I had someone say to me the other day, I've always wanted to do this. It's like, well, why don't we try and do that then? You know, there's no point in just doing what you've always done, because the world is going to be different. So the money is yours, even at the end of the 12 weeks. Better stock up on wine then. Yes, make sure it is a New Zealand wine, because that way you're actually helping our New Zealand economy, Tess. I work full-time and run my business on the side. Wow. So when you sort of work full-time and you've got a business, there is no secondary tax. So what we do is, here is your income from your full-time business, full-time job, let's say it's $40,000. You then have your business and you make $10,000 worth of profit, and out of that you know, your home office and all that sort of stuff has come into it. What we then do is we go, this is your self-employed money, this is your money from your job. So your tax across both of those is, say, 45,000. And so that's what you pay. There is no secondary tax. It is just a case of we mesh it all together. This is what your tax should have been on that amount of money. You've already paid this much through your business. So the leftover is XYZ, and that's what you pay on the 7th of April, and it's called terminal tax. So there is no secondary tax. So how's everyone actually feeling? Are you nervous about where we're heading, or is it exciting, or what's the general feeling? Yay. To be, and Tess, to be fair, I'm actually feeling quite excited about it as well. We've got clients that have always been run off their feet, and you know, I'll sit down and talk with a client, especially a new client, and actually say to them, you know, do you run your business or does your business run you? And 9 times out of 10 we start out with this whole great idea, and we start out with this great idea, and then it just grows slowly and slowly, and over a period of time it's morphed into something, and you're like, holy, you know, it's like a teenager. They were so cute and lovely, and all of a sudden you've just got this grunty, horrible thing that you have to live with. We've got to make sure that we can actually manage our business and that we're in charge. So right now is the perfect opportunity for all of us to actually get in charge of our business. Actually take the time to actually spend on developing ourselves and our business, and actually look at what works, what doesn't work. Exactly, Daniel, don't bury your head in the sand. There's going to be some huge opportunities. What is going to come out of this? I'm not the only one with 5,000 emails, that's cool. What's going to come out of this is those that actually spend the time to actually do this and do it well, and think positively, and actually really start analysing the market that is actually available to them, they will come out of this incredibly well. Those that just sit there and go, I have been a plumber for the last 5 years and I fix toilets. Actually, no, plumbers is a bad example. They're still going to be successful. But, you know, I sew shirts, and people have always wanted my pink shirt, and so I'm just going to keep doing pink shirts, and people are always going to love it. We have to stay one step ahead. Take this time. You know, the RBP network has got a heap of opportunities available to you. They're fully funding everything at the moment, so that's fantastic. I love you, Daniel. That's inappropriate, I know, but I said I am inappropriate. But yes, exactly, 1 hour per day to invest into yourself, learn more, actually grow your business, grow yourself. My whole philosophy when I work with clients is we don't actually look at the business for the first couple of months. It's about, what do you want? What are your personal goals, you know? If there are children, I used to actually say to my clients' kids, like, what are your goals? And one couple, their children wanted a trampoline. And so when the parents were out there doing the work and doing really long hours, because it was seasonal business, the kids were there alongside the parents helping them do the work because they were going to get a trampoline. It's all about actually creating that buy-in, actually knowing that, you know, you've just had a really shit day, but I'm working on this because I want XYZ. It's about understanding why you do what you do, and then this is going to be so much easier for you to cope with in this whole uncertain time that we find ourselves in. So really this is a huge opportunity. IRD is not the big scary beast that everyone expects them to be. I work a lot with small business owners. We actually specialise in micro business. Thanks, Lindley. I'm just finishing up, so it was great that you had the time to attend. We specialise in micro business and actually helping small business owners achieve great things. So if you have questions or you're not sure, by all means, just get in touch. We actually have our next group, so we have SOS groups which are supporting our small business. So you have a baby, you get a coffee group, and you actually go and you talk about poos and wees and all the lovely things that babies do. We actually have that for our business owners. And so we have coffee groups for business owners, which I think are going to be really valuable over the next 6 months or so, where you just come in and you work with small business owners, no more than 8 in a group. You set goals and you have to actually achieve them. It is a really powerful thing to be able to come in and actually go, oh, I've had the worst day or the worst week, and all of your peers actually pick you back up again. So that group is really cool, and we're about to launch our second group. We've got an online group, we've got our physical group here, and I'm about to start another group. So if anyone is interested in getting that extra support, by all means flick me an email and I can give you the details. But at the end of the day, thank you so much for actually investing your time to listen to me ramble on. Really sorry about my technical difficulties, but you can all type, so it's made this so much easier. If you've got any questions, I will come back to you, Daniel, about the tax rate for the interest rate for tax traders. So I'll flick you an email on that one. But if there's no other questions, we'll sign off. And I've got one more space on Friday morning in my small group cash flow discussion. And then I've got 2 spaces in my business planning session on Friday afternoon, if anyone is interested. Yes, please, to group. Oh, yes, Katrina. I've got you there.
Oh.
So, yes, no other questions. Everyone's happy. Flick me a private email if you want to. Okay, that's cool. Brilliant. And we are running a cash flow seminar on the 15th of April as well, if anyone is keen. So you can register for that one as well if you would like. And that's going to be around how to manage cash flow, the things that you could do, stock, all that sort of stuff. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, I will come back to you, Daniel, and otherwise, if you just flick me an email, Tess, and Katrina, I've already got yours. I'll keep you in the loop about our SOS groups. Brilliant. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.